10 spine-chilling true stories of missing tourists in Alaska. Hidden terrors exposed. It's not just nature that lurks in the breathtaking landscapes of Alaska. The mountains and trees hide secrets dark, chilling rumors of tourists who vanished without a trace. Like shadows swallowed by the earth, their stories strike fear into the heart of anyone daring enough to tread the glacial paths of Willow Creek. Locals whisper of a terror beyond comprehension, the curse of the wild, pulling strangers into the abyss. Could the breathtaking beauty of Alaska hide something insidious? Jenna felt that tension tighten around her as she and her son Kyle ventured deeper into the forest. The towering pines swayed gently, but in the stillness, an unsettling echo breathed through the air. She had hoped for peace, a reprieve from grief after losing her husband. But the idyllic scenery began to twist under the weight of unshakable fear. The locals gave her uneasy glances, smiles that didn't reach their eyes. She brushed it off, but their whispers haunted her. Just stories, she told herself, as she prepared dinner in the rented cabin. That night, shadows danced on the walls as she and Kyle shared laughter, but the glow of their digital moments faded when the sun dipped below the horizon. From outside, distant howls mingled with the wind, chilling Jenna to the bone. It felt like an invisible entity watching, waiting. Suddenly, her phone vibrated. A message from a blocked number. Beware the whispers of the woods, they take you. Heart racing, Jenna felt a cold sweat trickle down her back. Could it be a prank? Or a warning? Conflicted with both terror and confusion, she glanced at Kyle, his teenage eyes oblivious to the weight growing in her chest. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The next day, she sought the sheriff for reassurance. He smiled and waved her worries away. Just urban legends, he chuckled, his dismissive tone boiling her blood. Jenna's anxiety only grew as she dug deeper into the town's history. Old newspapers, faded and torn, told tales of disappearances, each unsolved case stitched into the fabric of Willow Creek. A chilling story in the local diner hinted at a respected leader who might know more than he let on. Days passed. Jenna felt a tightening knot of dread in the pit of her stomach. The rumor mill churned more swiftly, painting an even darker picture of the place all around. They returned to their cabin one afternoon only to find their car vandalized. A raccoon? No, a deliberate act. Panic set in as the realization hit. They were vulnerable here, trapped in isolation. When Kyle dashed into the woods to chase a bear, Jenna's heart raced. Moments melted into an eternity as she called for him, her voice cracking against the oppressive silence. Her pulse quickened, fear morphing into desperation. The very woods that had offered tranquility now buzzed with malevolence. She stumbled back to the cabin, fear gnawing in her gut. Then, she stumbled upon the journal of a previous visitor, pages thick with folklore tales of an entity bound to the earth, a predator hidden in plain sight. The chilling realization sank in. The town's dark legacy was more than urban myth. It was rooted in something far more ancient and frightening. Something that craved intruders as she read. It felt as if the shadows thickened around her, whispering for trespassers' souls. Night fell, and Jenna knew she had to find Kyle. Unlike the stories, this was no mere fiction. With each crunch of twigs underfoot, she felt the press of something lurking just beyond her. Vision. A gut-wrenching thought clawed at her mind. Maybe they weren't alone in the wilderness, and the deeper she traveled into the woods, the more she sensed it, an ancient truth woven through the darkness of Willow Creek. Jenna pushed deeper into the woods, her heart pounding like a war drum. Branches clawed at her skin as she stumbled through the underbrush, each rustle raising the hairs on the back of her neck. The chill of the night wrapped around her like a cloak, heavier with every step. Were those whispers tracing her path? It felt like the trees were alive, breathing, and watching. "Kyle," she called again, her voice breaking. No response. Only the mocking echo of her desperation returned. Panic surged through her veins. Every missing tourist-esque story swirled in her mind like a storm. Were they lost forever, wandering like her? Then, just ahead, she caught sight of something, a flicker of light. Just for a moment, the hollow darkness was pierced by a glow that seemed to flicker like a candle. A glimmer of hope, or perhaps a mirage conjured by her paranoia. She hurried toward it, her cautious instincts battling with the urge to flee. As she approached the light, the air grew colder, more oppressive, and the underbrush thickened like it was alive, constricting her movement. She reached a small clearing, and what she saw sent her heart plummeting. There, in the center, was a circle of stones, worn and ancient, glowing a ghostly blue. Around the stones, strange symbols were etched into the dirt, pulsating with an otherworldly energy. They weren't just whispers, they were chants. Jenna felt the ground tremble beneath her, as if the earth itself was alive and breathing and hungry. She took a step back, the realization crashing down on her like ice-cold water. Stories of this place weren't just about missing people. They were about sacrifices made to something far older and more primal. The very reason the denizens of Willow Creek wore those vacant smiles was to mask their complicity in the darkness thriving in the woods. "Mom," Kyle's voice called out, breaking through her panic. Jenna whipped around, eyes wide with relief, until she realized his tone was off, flat and hollow. He emerged from a thicket, his expression bewildered, yet eerily calm, almost as if he were in a trance. "Kyle, thank God." She rushed to him, grabbing his shoulders, but he didn't respond like the son she knew. "We need to leave. Now." But Kyle just stared at the circle of stones, entranced. "It's beautiful, isn't it?" he whispered, as if the alien symbols were singing to him. Jenna's heart sank. This wasn't her son. Something primal and dark had taken hold of him. "Kyle, look at me," she shouted, shaking him harder. The vacant look on his face chilled her to the bone. Then came the whispers. They wrapped around her like fog, deep, insistent, luring. The air thickened with a command she could feel resonating deep in her core. "Join us," they urged, soft yet commanding, pulling at the edges of her sanity. Jenna knew she had to act fast. Something wasn't just lurking in the shadows. It was reaching for them. Deep is its domains of malicious intent. Desperate, she snatched Kyle's arm and yanked him back toward the path. But as she turned, the light seemed to stretch, altering the very path they had come from. It warped reality, creating a vast and twisting maze. Shadows surged from the stones, creeping towards them, howling, longing for their souls. "Mom, where are we going?" Kyle asked, his voice layered with something dark, echoing the whispers, as they intertwined with his innocent question. "Run, Kyle." They bolted into the woods, with Jenna clutching Kyle's hand, racing against whatever was pursuing them. Every step was met with resistance, as if unseen hands grasped at their ankles. The woods roared and trembled, the whispers escalating, a cacophony of voices drawn from countless souls. Jenna could feel their overwhelming dread mix with her own. Were they already trapped? Was there no escape? Each frantic step threatened to drag them deeper into the nightmare. Then, through the chaos of sound, her phone buzzed in her pocket, a flash of hope in an engulfing darkness. She fumbled to pull it out, knowing she needed to call for help. But the blocked number flashed on the screen again. With a heart-stopping dread, a new message appeared. "They've awakened, you mustn't look back." Was this just a warning or a taunt? By now, the terror pulsating through her reached a peak, as behind them the shadows loomed larger, the whispers intensifying. Would she succumb to the darkness, or could she save her son? With dread tightening around her heart, she dared to glance over her shoulder, and what she saw made her blood run cold. In the flickering shadows, figures danced, gliding with a predator-esque grace, beckoning them home. The moment Jenna looked back, the world seemed to crumble. The shadows were not just shadows anymore. They were faces, twisted, hollow, and pleading. Faces of the lost. Jenna's breath caught in her throat, rage and despair battling within her. They were begging for release, but their yearning filled the air with an overwhelming sense of dread. "Mom." Kyle's voice pierced through her shock, oblivious to the horror. His grip on her hand slackened as he turned toward the figures. "No," Jenna cried, yanking him closer. Her heart raced, a frantic rhythm as the whispers swirled around them, sinking deeper into her mind. knotting her stomach with an indescribable fear. "We need to go? Please, Kyle." But he stood there, entranced, as the tendrils of darkness reached for him, curling like snakes eager to ensnare. She could sense their desperation, as if they sought to reclaim what was theirs. "Join us," the voices floated through the air, thick and syrupy, wrapping around her consciousness like a vice. The words slithered into her mind, promising something she dared not understand. Jenna pulled at Kyle's arm, her nails digging into his skin. "Fight it. You have to fight," she shouted, desperation coating her words with intensity. In that moment, she felt the ground shift beneath her feet, tugging them toward the stone circle. It was as if the earth was opening its mouth, hungry for her son. Her pulse thundered in her ears as she pulled him harder, adrenaline surging through her veins. But Kyle's expression changed. The glassy-eyed look faded for a breath, a hint of recognition flashed across his face, then disappeared. "Mom, I feel them now," she screamed, the word tearing from her throat. As the shadows inched closer, teeth glinting in the dim light, Jenna knew she couldn't wait any longer. She needed to shake him out of this trance, or they would both get swallowed whole. With a surge of strength, she swung her arm, smacking him across the face. The sound echoed through the clearing, a sharp crack in the suffocating night. "Kyle, look at me." For a moment, clarity broke through the fog. His eyes widened in surprise as he blinked, confusion swirling within. "What did you do?" Just come with me." But Jenna's momentary victory was short-lived. The shadows recoiled for a heartbeat, then surged forward with a furious howl, ripping through the air with a force that nearly knocked her over. Jenna stumbled, pulling Kyle along with her as they tore away from the ominous light and the horrific figures. Branches clawed at her skin, each one like a warning, a reminder of the horrors chasing them. The whispers transformed into frantic screams, angry and desperate, urging her to look back, to give in. "Climb," Jenna gasped, spotting a thick tree ahead. She lifted her leg, and both of them scrambled up the trunk, breathless, hearts racing. It was their only chance. But as they clung to the branches, Jenna could feel the shadows pooling around the base like storm clouds. "They might not be safe for long." "What are they?" Kyle whispered, his voice trembling, fear finally breaking through the thick fog of the trance. "Souls, lost souls," she said, aware she was losing the battle against her own paranoia. "We can't let them get us." Just as she felt the first terror of their pursuit fading, something shifted below. The shadows writhed and twisted, a thick mass surging, raising toward them, searching for their living warmth. A sudden loud crack echoed through the woods. One branch snapped, their safety, their last hope, teetered dangerously. They were far from safe. "Hold on," Jenna shouted, feeling the tree like a ship caught in a storm. Then the ground trembled again, and blinding light exploded in the darkness. "Mom, what was happening?" The trembling intensified, and Jenna felt something surging beneath her, something primal beneath the earth itself, and it was hungry. And in that moment of chaos, amidst the dark laughter of the figures below, a new realization struck her. What if the whispers weren't just a summons to danger, but an invitation to something far worse? With horror gripping her, Jenna turned to see a jagged silhouette rush toward them from the shadows. "Hold on tight." As the darkness shifted and the figures reached upward to claim them, something inside Jenna flickered. What did it mean to awaken the terror within? And then she saw it, the flicker of hope. "Mom, look!" Kyle shouted, pointing to the faint, defiant glow emanating from one of the stones, pulsing like a heartbeat. Was it a way out or another trap? And before she could decide, the world around them twisted. In that swirling chaos of shadow and light, Jenna clung to her son, knowing the real nightmare was just beginning. What lay beyond the next heartbeat? Were they to be the next sacrifices, or had they merely awakened a beast they couldn't control? The light flickered and dimmed, the glow beneath the stone pulsed, almost like a breath, alive and insistent. Jenna felt a pull in her gut, a sick feeling that told her to flee, but Kyle's eyes were glued to the glimmer, drawn as if by some invisible string. "Stay away from it," Jenna cried, yanking him closer. Even as she tugged, she could hear the shadows whispering their sweet, tempting promises. "Kyle, we have to get down. Now." But he was lost again, staring at that eerie glow that thrummed with dark allure. She could feel the shadow's breath, cold and damp, lingering at the soles of her shoes. The air thickened with dread, and the hollow cries of the lost souls seemed to grow louder, resonating in her bones. The silhouettes moved in tandem, a synchronized dance of despair, their gnarled fingers stretching toward both mother and son. Mom, Kyle whimpered, his face pale as he wrestled against whatever force gripped him. Fight it. She shook him again, and this time his gaze shifted back to her, fear igniting recognition. Help them, he murmured, his voice a threadbare whisper. No, we can't help them. She could feel the edges of her sanity fraying as the whispering morphed into frantic howls, igniting a primal fear she'd never known. They want to take you. To take us. Jenna's heart raced, pounding against her chest painfully. The stone's glow pulsated, casting strange shadows that writhed and twisted. The figures beckoned, their faces contorting in agony and hope, begging for companionship, or was it a plea for revenge? I want to go home. Kyle's eyes welled with tears that glistened like tiny stars in the darkened void of the forest. They sound so sad now, she screamed, clutching his arm, desperate and terrified. They're not sad. They're trapped. They'll take you with them. Just then, the branch underfoot cracked again, its groaning echoing through the eerie silence that followed. Another shudder rocked the ground. Jenna looked down, seeing the shadows swarming, restless and ravenous, their faces now contorted in anger. Kyle, climb. She hoisted him up higher into the crook of the branches, feeling the bark tear at her palms as they scrambled for safety. The glowing stone pulsed brighter, the light spilling into the surrounding darkness. What if it was a trap, but also a way out? An answer? A chance? She hesitated, every sinew of her being screaming to escape, while something deeper, a lingering curiosity, pulled her closer to the shimmering light. Mom, we can't stay here forever. Kyle's voice broke through her thoughts, strained and panicked as another branch began to splinter under the weight of their urgency. Then we jump, she shouted, determination infusing her voice. On three. Before she could brace for the descent, the pulsating light enveloped them, a slick tide of warmth rising up to snatch at their legs. It tugged, pulling them downward away from the tree like a magnet. No, Jenna screamed as she felt the grip of the shadows slip, releasing her from their icy grasp. But the thrill was short-lived when she heard an uproar below, a deafening roar of anger mixed with loss that rattled her bones. They fell. Jenna clutched her son tightly, wrapping her arms around him as they plummeted through the air. Time slowed as she felt a flash of clarity and fear mix into a sickening swirl. The ground rushed up to meet them, and she braced for impact, not knowing if it was dark or light that awaited them below. But instead of solid earth, they landed in a soft, dubious mist that enveloped them in its chilling embrace, further obscuring the world around them. It flickered, shimmers of those lost souls swirling amidst them, illuminating remnants of the past, a juxtaposition of despair and fragmented hope. Kyle. Through the haze, she could barely see him. Mom, are we still safe? A tremor laced his voice, genuine fear seeping through. Jenna didn't answer, too preoccupied with the dark silhouettes that closed in, their faces now forming grim smiles. Hope twisted into dread as she felt the air constrict around them. How deep did the darkness go? What waited for them in this uncharted realm? And then, from the depths of the mist, a new echo began to resonate, an ancient, powerful chant that seemed to rise from the very bones of the earth. Join us, what awaited them in this darkness? A fate worse than death, or a chance to change everything? The unyielding pull of the shadows beckoned, and Jenna's heart raced with a frantic rhythm, knowing they weren't alone anymore. What would happen when the mist swallowed them whole? The mist coiled around them like a suffocating blanket, thick and oppressive. Jenna's chest tightened with every shallow breath she took, her instincts screaming at her to fight, to claw her way back into the light. Kyle's grip on her hand felt fragile, like a lifeline slipping through her fingers. Mom, he whispered, voice quivering beneath the echoing chant that circled them. The mist thickened, distorting their surroundings, twisting familiar shapes into monstrous outlines. Jenna turned her head sharply, scanning the shifting shadows. Faces materialized from the vapor, faces she recognized. Friends, neighbors, and strangers. All mouths were open in silent screams, eyes wide with terror, begging for release. "Do you see them?" she asked, panic rising in her throat. "Kyle, do you see them?" "No, I don't want to," he cried, squeezing her hand harder, his knuckles turning white. The world around them spun, and Jenna felt disorientation grip her heart. "Stop," she yelled, a desperate need for control surging through her. "We need to find a way out, please." They started to move through the fog, each step a struggle against the unseen weight pulling at their souls. Whispers rushed around them, clinging like vines, their syllables slippery and cold. Join us," the words wrapped around Jenna, slithering into her mind. Every step was a battle, each breath a fight against doubt. What if they were wrong? What if staying would bring some kind of peace? The thought filled her with a chill that settled in her bones. "Keep walking, Kyle. Just keep going," she urged, feeling the ground shift beneath them. The mist began to pulse, and the shadows snickered, their laughter like shards of glass. Suddenly, a glow pierced through the fog ahead. It drew her in, warm and bright, like hope pinched from the dark. "Look," Jenna pointed, her heart racing. "Do you see that?" Kyle squinted through the haze, uncertainty etched on his small face. "What if it's a trap? Then we'll fight," she declared, her voice stronger now, fueled by desperation and love. "We can't give up. Not yet." With purpose, they rushed toward the light. The whispers grew frantic, the shadowy figures swirling around them, their faces cruel and mocking. The glow expanded, illuminating a path, but it felt like a tug-of-war between two worlds, the light and the darkness. And Jenna and Kyle were caught in the middle as they reached the brilliance. Jenna was consumed by a new wave of doubts. Was it salvation, or would it bring them face to face with something worse? Just before they plunged into the luminosity, a thunderous roar echoed through the underground realm. The shadows faltered, their whispers fading in shock. "Mom, what was that?" Kyle shouted, a tremor in his voice. "It's okay. Just hold on to me." In that fleeting moment of clarity, Jenna made a choice. With one last look back at the contorted faces, she plunged into the light, pulling Kyle with her, adrenaline surging as they broke through the mist's veil. They emerged into a cavern of sparkling rock and cascading streams of light. But the shadows lingered at the edges, their forms rippling in the distant darkness, still echoing their haunting siren call. "What is this place?" Kyle whispered, awestruck, looking around at the glittering reflections in every direction. In the trembling silence, Jenna could hear it again, the low, primal chant. It wasn't gone. It was waiting, biding its time, ready to ensnare them once more. "Mom, we have to get out," Kyle urged, his eyes wide and frightened. But with each passing moment in this shimmering realm, Jenna sensed another presence lurking, a darker force lying in wait. What was the price of their freedom? And would the light lead them to safety or deeper into despair? Shivers skated down her spine as the air thickened around them. Something was shifting, and this was far from over. The air crackled with a tension that felt like static electricity. Jenna's heart pounded in her ears, drowning out the whispering chant that still lingered like a ghost on the wind. The flickering light cast eerie shadows against the walls, creating a dance of silhouettes that twisted and turned as if alive. Mom, Kyle's voice was a mere tremor. She turned to him, his small figure dwarfed by the vastness of the cavern. Panic washed over her. This place, so beautiful yet grotesque, held a sinister promise. "Stay close," she instructed, her voice barely above a whisper. Each step felt like they were being watched, a pair of unseen eyes trailing them through the shimmering rock formations that sparkled like diamonds. Every glint of light felt like a taunt, a reminder that the darkness was just inches away. They moved deeper into the cavern, the path narrowing, the silence pressing in around them mercilessly. The air was cooler here, a biting chill that wrapped around Jenna's throat, making her shiver. It was as if the very essence of this place sought to snare their breaths, to draw life from them as the shadows loomed closer. With each turn they took, the echo of their footsteps sounded louder, mocking their every move. Jenna's grip on Kyle's hand tightened. She couldn't show fear, not now. But deep inside, dread lodged like a stone in her gut. Suddenly, a flash of color caught her eye, a mural etched into the cavern's wall. It depicted figures distorted, anguished faces reaching out towards a light that flickered like a dying star. It was as if they had been here too, drawn in by the seductive glow only to be imprisoned in stone. "Look, Kyle," she breathed, pointing. "It's like a warning. What does it mean?" he asked, eyes wide, innocence battling with the terror surrounding them. "I don't know," Jenna replied, her voice faltering. "But we need to keep moving." The instinct to flee was nearly overwhelming. They turned a corner and came face to face with a narrow passage, cloaked in darkness. Sounds skittered across the rocks, small, chittering, almost playful, like whispers of encouragement or curses of the damned. "Mom," Kyle started, but Jenna cut him off. "Just hold my hand. We need to get out." As they stepped into the darkness, the light behind them waned, swallowed by the cavern-esque growl. Jenna felt the shift around them, the temperature dropping further as the shadows loomed in tighter. The chant began again, rising to a fever pitch. This time it was different, thick with urgency, laced with a hideous delight. The voices became a wave, crashing over her, threatening to drag them down into madness. "We're almost there." She pushed forward, forcing herself to keep moving, each step an act of defiance against the horror lurking just beyond their line of sight. A howl erupted from the depths of the cavern, a sound so primal it made the hair on her arms stand on end. Jenna stumbled, caught off guard, and for an instant, she felt a dark force tug at her, as if trying to pull her back into the fog. "Mom," Kyle screamed, his voice breaking. "No, I want to let it take you," Jenna shouted, her breath quickening, adrenaline surging. She steered them toward a flicker of light, another warmth glimmering faintly ahead as hope battled the encroaching despair. The shadows coiled tighter around them, their forms writhing, twisting, building into a wall of wrath. Jenna pushed through, every ounce of strength channeling forward as the tunnel seemed to narrow into a constricting void. Just as the light blazed brighter, the clamoring voices rose into a cacophony of rage, striking like a whip against her psyche. What would it cost them to escape? And was the light a beacon or a final grave beyond reach? Before she could comprehend, an unseen force knocked her to her knees. Kyle fell beside her, eyes wild and terrified. "Mom," he gasped, trembling like a leaf caught in a storm. Jenna's heart raced as the voices began to form words, chilling her blood like an icy hand. "Stay with us, stay forever," and in that moment, the darkness seeped into her mind, a question blossoming. How far would she go to protect her son? As the shadows closed in, Jenna felt one last surge of fury. She had to fight back, or they would be lost forever. But the darkness was stronger. "Wake up," a voice whispered in her ear, wrapping around her thoughts like chains. Would they surrender? Or would they break free? The answer loomed just beyond the edge of light. The darkness pulsed like a living entity, wrapping around Jenna and Kyle in suffocating tendrils. The flickering light ahead beckoned, but it felt like a cruel joke, a mirage of hope against a canvas painted with despair. Jenna could feel the shadows breathing, as if they had flesh, craving them, hungry for their fear. "Mom, what is happening?" Kyle's voice trembled, fighting against the chaotic symphony of whispers. She glanced down at him, his wide eyes reflecting terror, raw and palpable. She wanted to pour strength into him, to shield him from the madness creeping ever closer. "It's okay, Kyle. Just stay close." But her own voice felt weak, a pale echo in the vastness. Each second stretched into an eternity, draped in the chilling sensation that something was coming for them, something that didn't just want to scare them, but to consume their very souls. The cavernous walls seemed to pulsate, vibrating with the chants growing louder. They were no longer mere murmurs. They wrapped around Jenna's mind, digging deeper, seeping into her thoughts. "Join us, surrender, Mom," Kyle cried again, pulling her hand like it was a lifeline. She didn't know how much longer they could hold on. The shadows twisted closer, their edges shimmering with a malevolent light, mocking any flicker of bravery left in her heart. "Keep moving," Jenna shouted, fighting back panic. She steadied herself and took a step forward, dragging Kyle along. The warmth of the flickering light urged her on, even as the cold claws of the darkness clawed at her ankles, slowing their progress. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the shadows, a tall, gaunt silhouette with hollow eyes gleaming like obsidian. It stood just at the edge of the light, its mouth contorting into a grin that was more a gaping chasm than a smile. Jenna stumbled back, pushing Kyle behind her instinctively. "Why do you run?" it whispered, the voice a sickly sweet caress that dripped with malice. "We want you here forever." Jenna's blood ran cold. She could barely comprehend the horror in front of her. "Stay back," she yelled, her voice cracking, but the creature only tilted its head, as if amused by her fear. "Fear is delicious," it hissed. "Don't you want to see what lies beyond? To be free?" "No," Jenna shrieked, pulling Kyle closer. Her mind raced. She needed an escape. The light it couldn't just be false hope. It had to lead them out of here. "Come on, Kyle." They darted past the figure, its laughter trailing behind them like a serpent's hiss, mocking, venomous. As they sprinted, the chanting swelled again, an orchestrated crescendo that vibrated in Jenna's bones. Just ahead, the light flickered erratically, and in that moment, Jenna hesitated. Something wasn't right. The shadows seemed to merge, swallowing the glow, and Kyle's grip slackened. "Mom, I can't feel my legs." His voice was small, lost in the din. Jenna's heart dropped. She turned to see him tremble, his eyes glazing over as shadows wrapped around him like thick ribbons. "No, Kyle." Desperation clawed at her throat as she reached for her son, but the shadows were faster. They surged, enveloping him. "Join us," the murmurs beckoned again, weaving through her thoughts like a sinister lullaby. "Get away from him." Jenna screamed, rage rushing through her veins as she lunged towards the shadows. The walls of the cavern started to close in, ready to crush them. "Mom, help." Everything blurred into chaos. Jenna fought against the encroaching dark, but it was a battle against time, and something far worse than the void. It was the relentless erosion of her willpower. The shadows were strong, pulling her down. With a final surge, she grabbed a handful of the glowing fragments from the wall, clutching them like flares in the storm. "Get out of here," she roared. But the air crackled with an ominous silence as she faced the darkness alone. What price would she pay to reclaim her son? Time froze as she felt them tugging at her core, whispering promises of salvation and surrender. And just like that, the shimmering light flickered out. The darkness vanished, swallowed by an eerie quiet that left Jenna's heart pounding in her chest. She stood, alone, surrounded by silence, that stinging absence of sound amplifying her dread. Panic clawed at her throat. Where was Kyle? A flash of the gaunt figure flickered behind her eyes, the memory of its voice lacing through her mind like poison. "Kyle!" she shouted, desperation tearing at her. The cavern seemed to echo her scream, and she flinched at the emptiness that answered her. She strained to listen for any sign of her son, but only the oppressive silence bore witness to her terror. Sweat dripped down her spine, and a chill danced over her skin. The shadows loomed, a thick blanket of dark that pressed in, suffocating her memories of warmth, safety, and love. "Mom," the voice was faint, almost lost in the shadows, but it was unmistakable. Was that him? "Mom, help me." Jenna's heart surged. She turned, the flickering light once more at the perimeter of her vision. Only now it seemed to pulsate with something sinister, beckoning her back. "Hold on, Kyle. I'm coming." She took a step toward the sound, the darkness swirling around her ankles like a living creature trying to pull her down. Each step was a battle. It felt as if the shadows were gripping her with icy fingers. The voice came again, more desperate. "Mom, I can't breathe." Frantic, Jenna raced forward into the expanse of dark. With every stride, the shadows hissed around her, whispering temptations she fought to ignore. "Join us, we can show you what lies beneath. It's so freeing." "Shut up," she yelled, the words strangled from her throat. "I want to listen to you." The light flickered again, and she could almost make out a small shadow against the dark. "Kyle, keep talking," she pleaded, forcing herself onward. "I'm almost there. There is something here." His words faltered, filled with panic. The shadows wrapped tighter around him, and Jenna's heart shattered at the throaty whimper that followed. No, there was strength in her voice now, fueled by desperation. She pushed deeper, gripping the glowing fragments like hope in the grasp of despair. "I'm coming, Kyle. I want to leave you." Suddenly, the air shifted. A shriek sliced through the cavern, sharp and piercing, wrapping Jenna in waves of raw terror. It was the figure, existing just beyond reach, slipping through the shards of light, as if it fed off the very fear it inspired. "Why cling to the light?" it crooned, its voice weaving through the darkness like smoke. Embrace your destiny forever. Jenna felt the walls trembling as if the universe itself was hungry, pressing on her mind, on her sanity. Her legs ached. Each breath came harder, but she wouldn't stop. Kyle, keep talking. Please, I'm almost there. Mom, I can't hold on much longer. His voice was a whimper now, each syllable breaking her resolve piece by piece. The shadows shifted violently as Jenna plunged deeper, the gleaming fragments growing hot in her hands. They felt alive, as if they were responding to her need, burning against the dark. Then, a roaring sound erupted, the ground quaking underfoot. Terrified, Jenna stumbled, a scream forming on her lips. She could feel her body teetering on the edge of oblivion, where light met dark in a fatal embrace. Mom! The cry shattered her heart. She lunged forward, eyes fixed on the slim outline of Kyle, barely visible now. I'm here. But as she reached for him, the shadows twisted around his form, pulling him deeper into their grasp. The cavern walls laughed, mocking her futile struggle. Jenna's resolve hardened. No, she screamed, blinding herself to the consuming darkness. You want to take him? She hurled the glowing fragments, showering them against the onyx mass, and then silence. The darkness hesitated. A palpable moment hung before a screech so deafening tore through the cavern, reverberating with soul-crushing despair. In that moment, a new voice broke through the din. Help! Please help us! The fear swelled, engulfing Jenna. What now? Who was calling? With renewed determination, Jenna felt the embers of hope flare within her, ready to face whatever horror awaited. But then, before she could respond, the shadows realigned, swirling with malicious intent, as if the very cave was alive, biding its time. What would be the price for salvation? Jenna's breath hitched as the haunting cry reverberated in her ears, gnawing at her sanity. Help us! It seemed to echo from everywhere and nowhere all at once. Panic seized her heart, squeezing tighter with each passing second. Who else was trapped in this living nightmare? She glanced toward the direction of Kyle's voice, but the shadows morphed, dark tendrils creeping ever closer. They pulsed like a heartbeat, tapping into her deepest fear. Was she truly alone, or was this place a graveyard of lost souls? Mom! Kyle's voice trembled, cutting off abruptly. A sickening dread filled her chest. What if he had gone silent forever? No, I won't let that happen. Jenna dashed forward, her legs screaming in protest. Each step grew heavier, almost as if the cave was resisting her, trying to pull her back into its malevolent embrace. Please, the new voice wheezed, barely making it through. Don't leave us! Desperation clawed at her throat. I'm not leaving anyone behind. She could feel the pulsing shadows wrapping around her limbs like chains. She flailed against them, trying to escape, her fingers scraping against the cold stone wall. Just then, the darkness parted, revealing a narrow path ahead. Hope flickered like a dying ember. Did she dare? Ignoring the voices swirling in her ears, Jenna sprinted forward, the glimmer of a light at the end arcing upward. But as she approached, her hopes crumbled. The light was not a doorway out. It was a portal, a swirling vortex of despair. Faces twisted in agony swirled within the cyclone of radiance. Some appeared familiar, faces of people she recognized from years past. Friends, family. She stumbled back, fear gripping her spine like ice. No, you're not real. The shadows lunged at her, and she felt a cold finger trace her cheek, brushing against her skin like a warning caress. Join us! The whisper was soft, seductive. It pulled at her heartstrings. Some part of her wanted to surrender, to give into the darkness and relieve the burden of fear. No, she snapped, finding strength in her maternal instinct. Kyle needs me. With renewed determination, Jenna rushed forward, forcing her way through the thinning shadows as they writhed and hissed like 1,000 serpents. The cavern groaned, its walls vibrating with a vicious fury. Screams erupted around her, a cacophony wailing for release. Suddenly, the floor beneath her cracked open, revealing a gaping chasm. Heat surged upward, wrapping around her like torturous hands. Kyle! She screamed, but the abyss began to swallow the light. Panic drove her to the edge, teetering over the void. In the distance, she could see him, a slight shadow, standing just beyond. Kyle! She cried, extending her arms, willing herself to pull him back from the brink. But the chasm was endless, yawning wide like a deceptive mouth. "Help us! You'll lose him!" The figures cried uselessly, pleading with her. They grasped at her for refuge, desperation etched on their faces. The shadows around her morphed again, forming a creature, a hulking mass of fear, its eyes gleaming with malice. "You can't save him," it growled, its voice like crunching bones. With a swift motion, it lashed out, sending a wave of darkness that knocked Jenna to her knees. "Mom, please. I'm scared." Kyle's voice echoed through the chaos, so small, so fragile. "No." She dug her fingers into the ground, feeling for the fragments she had thrown earlier. They flickered like fireflies, a guiding light through the murk. She clawed her way toward them as the creature loomed closer, a monstrous silhouette eclipsing her vision. Fingers brushed against something warm and pulsing. The fragments her last chance. She snatched them, holding them high above her head. "Get away from us!" she screamed, her voice a battle cry. The fragments ignited, casting a radiant glow that cut through the shadows. But as the light spread, the cave trembled not with relief, but rage. The ground shook violently, threatening to swallow her whole in its fury. Suddenly, everything fell silent. The shadows receded, and the lingering cries faded to whispers. Jenna's heart raced, adrenaline pumping, but that silence felt wrong. Unearthly. Mama voice whispered from the void, just beyond reach. Was it Kyle? Or was it something worse? The ground beneath her cracked again, and Jenna knew one thing for sure. She had awakened something, and it was hungry. What else lay hidden beneath the surface, waiting for the unwary? Jenna stood at the edge of that chasm, her heart hammering wildly as the shadows swirled and danced around her. The air was thick with a tension that felt electric, crawling against her skin like 1,000 pinpricks. "Kyle!" she yelled, her voice cracking under the weight of terror. Time stretched in those moments, each second a painful reminder of the distance between them. She saw his silhouette flickering like a candle in the wind, and desperation clawed at her throat. The abyss gaped open, but she wouldn't let it claim him. The fragments in her hand pulsed with warmth, a flicker of hope amidst the darkness. She steadied her breath, tapping into that primal instinct that had kept her fighting since they first entered the woods. "I'm coming for you," she shouted, edging closer to the gaping void. "Kyle." The shadows seemed to mock her with echoes of her son's name. But she wouldn't entertain the whispers. Clenching her fists, Jenna stepped to the brink, every muscle in her body screaming out in defiance. "Fight, Kyle. I know you're in there." And then, as if hearing her words, Kyle's voice broke through the howling madness. "Mom, I'm trying, but it's so hard." She felt the shadows twitch, tightening around him like a vice. "You have to believe in me. In us. I'm right here." With a surge of courage, Jenna leaped forward, letting the fragments fly from her grasp, showering light onto the abyss. That radiant glow cut through the darkness like a sword, illuminating the twisted forms crying out for release. The light poured forth, illuminating the grotesque figures trapped in eternal grievance. Faces she recognized, angry, pleading, tormented, swirled around her, but she couldn't lose her focus. She couldn't let fear freeze her in place. "Kyle, hold on." The cold grasp of shadows reached for her, a last-ditch effort to drag her into their melancholic embrace. "Join us," they breathed, their voices a cacophony resonating deeply within her. It felt like a seductive lullaby, promising relief from the pain. But the burning determination inside her would not flicker out. Just when the darkness threatened to pull her back, a clarion voice rang out from behind her. "Get away from her." It was Kyle's voice, fierce, strong, breaking through the sorrow that had almost claimed him. "Yes, that's it," Jenna roared, feeling a spark ignite within her. "You can fight it. I believe in you." She stumbled back from the edge, focusing on the light ahead. She believed in the glow. It was powerful. It could wash over them both like a cleansing wave. The dark figures shrieked, turning brittle and unraveling in the presence of light. She moved. "Mom, I see you." Kyle lunged, fighting against the grip of shadowy tendrils. Everything in her urged Jenna to reach for him. She pressed forward, stronger now, urging the light with her will, fortifying it with every ounce of courage she owned. With a furious shout, she plunged into the fray, letting the light envelop both of them. wrapping around their bodies like a protective shield. As they collided, the fragments burst into an explosion of brilliance. The shadows rippled and shrieked, their dark forms disintegrating around them like ashes cast to the wind. "Hold on tight," she shouted, and for a moment, everything faded away: the chanting, the shadows, the fear, and all that remained was the searing light. It illuminated their path back to safety, a shimmering golden thread weaving through the dark. In that blinding brightness, Jenna clawed against the darkness, and soon the abyss fell away. She blinked against the brilliance as the world around them shifted, light pulling them upwards, breaking apart the chains of despair. They soared, rising from the depths where fear had tried to engulf them. Finally, they tumbled out of the shadows and into the cool, fresh air of Willow Creek, gasping for breath. They landed in a clump of wildflowers, sunlight spilling over them like a blessing, bathing them in warmth. Jenna grasped Kyle, feeling the solidness of him beside her, the reality of his heart beating against her own. "Mom, we made it," he said, panting but resolute. The dark woods towered ominously behind them, branches shaking as if to tell them it was not over. Jenna's heart pounded with a mix of fear and relief. "This isn't the end. We have to warn others," Jenna whispered, determination filling her chest. Together, they turned back, fingers intertwined like lifelines. As they made their way to the town, Jenna realized she felt a flicker of hope. They could share their story, protect others from the same darkness that had nearly claimed them. As they stepped onto the path leading out of the woods, she stole a glance behind. The shadows that loomed were still there, but they would no longer have power over her. With a strong stride, she pulled Kyle closer, prepared to face whatever came next. "Let us go home," she said, each stride heavier with resolve, leaving fears behind as they walked toward dawn. And in that moment, as the sun broke free, she felt it could be the dawn of a new beginning if only they remembered. If you want more thrilling stories like this, you need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Smash that like button now to help the algorithm thrive. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this heart-pounding conclusion. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to experience this wild ride.